A small German shepherd puppy stands on its hind legs, pawing frantically at a dented gray locker in a dimly lit police station basement. 3 officers in uniform watch from a distance, arms crossed. One shakes his head. "That dog's been at it for 3 days straight," says Sergeant Townsend. "It's driving everyone insane." Officer Morris nods toward the captain. "Sir, with all due respect, we need to get rid of it." But Captain Reese stares at the locker, something uneasy tightening in his chest. The question hangs in the cold basement air. What does that puppy know that they don't? Welcome to Mr. Bryan's Tale, where every story takes you on an unforgettable journey. Whether it's thrilling adventures, heartwarming moments, or tales that'll keep you on the edge of your seat, this is your destination for captivating storytelling. If you love getting lost in exciting narratives and discovering new worlds with every video, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss out on the next amazing tale. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. It started 5 days earlier on a Tuesday night. Officer Jean Morris, 2 months out of the academy, was walking her beat when she heard whimpering from behind a dumpster on 6th and Monroe. She crouched down and found him, a scrawny German shepherd mix, maybe 4 months old, shivering in a cardboard box. No collar, no tag, just big brown eyes and paws too large for his body. She radioed dispatch. Animal control's backlogged. They told her, drop him at a shelter in the morning. But Morris didn't. She brought him to Precinct 47 instead. Just for one night, she told herself. The squad fell for him immediately. Officer Davison shared his turkey sandwich. Sergeant Alvarez found an old blanket. Even Townsend, stone-faced, 22 years on the force, cracked a smile when the puppy tried to chase his own tail. They named him Tiny as a joke because he wasn't. By morning, nobody wanted him to leave. Captain Reese gave unofficial approval. The dog could stay as long as he didn't cause problems. For 2 days, Tiny was a station mascot. He napped in the break room, greeted officers at the door, and brought a lightness to a building that rarely saw it. Everyone loved him, until day 3. That's when Tiny found locker 374. It was in the basement, near the old changing area. Rusted, barely used. But Tiny stood in front of it and started barking. Not playful yapping. Deep, urgent, relentless barking. Officers tried to distract him. Tried treats, toys, even moving him upstairs. But within minutes, Tiny would bolt back down the basement and resume his post. By day 4, the love had worn thin. Sergeant Townsend was the first to snap. He'd worked midnights for a decade and prided himself on staying calm under pressure. But Tiny's barking had cost him 2 nights of sleep. "That dog is out of control," he told Captain Reese on Thursday morning. "It's a distraction. We're a police station, not a kennel." Officer Morris agreed. She felt guilty. After all, she brought Tiny in, but the barking was unbearable. "I've tried everything, Captain. He won't stop, and it's always the same locker. Number 374. Reese frowned. "What's in that locker?" Morris shrugged. "Nothing. It's been empty for months. Forensics used to store old evidence bags down there, but they moved everything to the annex last year." Reese walked down to see for himself. Tiny was there, paws scratching at the metal door, whining between barks. The captain opened the locker. Empty, just dust and a faint metallic smell. He closed it. Tiny barked louder. "All right, that's enough," Reese muttered, picking up the puppy and carrying him upstairs. Tiny squirmed the entire way. An hour later, he was back at the locker. By Friday, other officers were complaining. Dispatch couldn't hear calls clearly. The holding area echoed with Tiny's barking. Veterans who'd worked through riots and shootouts were losing patience with a 20-pound puppy. Townsend cornered Reese in his office. "Sir, with respect, the dog has to go. Today." Morris stood beside him, guilt and frustration warring on her face. "I'll take him to a shelter after my shift," she offered quietly. Reese looked at both of them. He wanted to argue, but he was a captain, not a dog trainer, and the precinct came first. "Fine," he said. "Tomorrow morning. Morris, you handle it." Tiny had 1 night left, but something else was happening. Something nobody had noticed yet. Officer Davison had called in sick Wednesday with a migraine. Sergeant Alvarez complained of dizziness Thursday afternoon and left early. By Friday, 3 more officers reported headaches, nausea, and fatigue. It's flu season, Townsend said dismissively. Or stress. This job will do that. Morris felt it too, a dull pressure behind her eyes, a heaviness in her limbs. She chalked it up to lack of sleep. Tiny's barking had kept her up. Others blamed the aging building. Precinct 47 was old, built in the 60s, retrofitted a dozen times. The heating was inconsistent. The ventilation was loud. Everyone assumed the discomfort was just par working in a building that should have been condemned years ago. No one connected the symptoms. No one connected the timing. And no one, except Tiny, knew about the basement. Friday night, Reese stayed late to finish reports. The building was nearly empty. Just him, 2 dispatch officers upstairs, and Tiny in the basement. The barking had become white noise. But around midnight, it changed. It wasn't rhythmic anymore. It was frantic, desperate. Reese set down his pen and listened. The sound clawed at something deep in his gut. He stood, walked to the basement door, and opened it. The barking hit him like a wave. Tiny was there, pawing at locker 374, his little body trembling with effort. Reese descended the stairs slowly. He knelt beside the dog. "What is it, boy? What do you want me to see?" Tiny looked at him, really looked at him, and barked once. Sharp, clear, urgent. Reese reached for the locker. He'd opened it before. Found nothing. But this time, he didn't just glance inside. This time, he leaned in, and that's when he smelled it. Faint. Chemical. Wrong. Captain Reese grabbed his flashlight and shone it into the locker. At the back wall, barely visible, was a ventilation grate. He reached in and felt air moving. Cold air. He pressed his face closer. The smell was stronger here. Metallic. Sweet. His pulse quickened. "Morris!" He shouted into his radio. "Get down to the basement. Now." She arrived 2 minutes later, breathless. "What's wrong?" "Call maintenance. And get everyone out of the building." Her eyes widened. "Captain, do it now." Within 10 minutes, a city maintenance technician arrived with a gas detector. He descended into the basement, device in hand. When he reached locker 374, the detector screamed. The technician's face went pale. "Carbon monoxide. High concentration. You need to evacuate immediately." The building was cleared. Fire and hazmat teams arrived. The ventilation grate behind the locker led to a ductwork shaft connected to an old boiler system in the sub-basement. A pipe had cracked weeks ago, maybe longer. Carbon monoxide had been seeping into the station to the ventilation, pooling in the basement and drifting upward to the building's ancient duct system. Odorless, invisible, deadly. The levels in the basement were critical. Another few days, and someone working a late shift could have died in their sleep. The officers who'd been feeling sick, early symptoms of poisoning. Davison's migraine, Alvarez's dizziness, Morris's fatigue. The technician turned to Reese. "How did you know to check?" Reese looked down at Tiny, still sitting beside locker 374. Finally quiet. "I didn't," he said. "The dog did." Townsend stood in the parking lot, staring at the evacuation scene. He looked at Morris. She looked back. Neither of them said a word. They didn't have to. They'd been wrong. And Tiny had been right. By Saturday morning, the story had spread. Local news picked it up. Puppy saves police precinct from carbon monoxide leak. The station was closed for a week while repairs were made. Officers were given medical evaluations. All of them tested positive for low-level CO exposure. All of them would recover. And all of them owed their lives to a dog they'd wanted gone. Reese called a meeting the day the station reopened. The full squad gathered in the briefing room. Tiny sat at the captain's feet, tail wagging. "I owe this dog an apology," Reese began. "And so, do the rest of you." He looked directly at Townsend. The sergeant stood. He walked to the front of the room, looked down at Tiny, then knelt. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "I didn't listen. and you saved my life." He extended his hand. Tiny sniffed it, then licked his palm. The room exhaled. Morris stood next. "I almost took him to a shelter," she said, voice thick. "I almost gave up on him." She crouched beside Tiny and scratched behind his ears. "I'm sorry, buddy." The room erupted in applause. Reese raised his hand for silence. Effective today, Tiny is officially adopted by Precinct 47. He'll be trained as our early warning K-9 officer. He's not going anywhere. Cheers. Whistles. Even Townsend smiled. A local journalist asked for a photo. They posed together. Captain Reese, Tiny, and the entire squad. The headline ran the next day. The Nuisance puppy who became a lifesaver. But for Reese, the real moment came later that night. He sat alone in his office, Tiny asleep at his feet. The building was silent, safe, and for the first time in years, the captain felt grateful for a sound he'd once wanted to stop. Months later, Tiny is no longer the station puppy. He's Officer Tiny. He wears a custom badge on his collar. He's been trained in scent detection and alert behavior. But more than that, he's become a symbol. Other precincts heard the story. Some reached out asking how they could integrate early warning animals into their own stations. Morris spearheaded the program. She worked with animal behaviorists in K-9 units to develop protocols. Tiny's story was featured in training seminars across the state. Animals detect what we can't. Morris would tell recruits. They don't ignore their instincts, and we shouldn't ignore them. Townsend, who once demanded Tiny be removed, became his biggest advocate. He kept a photo on his desk, him kneeling beside the puppy, the day he apologized. "Remind me to listen," he'd say when people asked. The locker, number 374, was removed entirely during the renovations. In its place, the department installed a memorial plaque. In gratitude to Tiny, who saw what we could not, and saved those who serve. Tiny still patrols the station. But now, when he barks, everyone stops. Everyone listens. On quiet nights, Captain Reese reflects on how close they came. How a dog nobody wanted, a nuisance dismissed by trained professionals, had been the only one paying attention. He thinks about all the times in his career he'd ignored his gut, all the times procedure overruled instinct. Tiny taught him something he should have known all along. Sometimes the smallest voice is the one you need to hear most. The story ends with Tiny curled up in the captain's office, a ball of fur and quiet breath. The barking has stopped. The danger has passed. And the dog who wouldn't give up is finally, peacefully, home. So here's what I want you to think about tonight. We spend our whole lives trusting systems, alarms, detectors, protocols, procedures. We trust what we can measure, what we can see, what makes logical sense. And most of the time, that works. But every once in a while, the system fails. The technology misses something. The experts overlook it. The procedures don't account for it. And in those moments, survival comes down to something we can't program or predict. Instinct. Tiny didn't have training. He didn't have a manual. He couldn't explain why that locker terrified him or why he refused to give up even when every human around him wanted him gone. He just knew. And he trusted that knowing enough to risk everything, his home, his safety, his place in the only pack he'd ever had. How many times have you felt something was wrong, but couldn't explain why? How many times did you ignore that feeling because it didn't make sense, because others dismissed it, because you didn't want to look foolish? Captain Reese almost made that mistake. Townsend and Morris did make it. They were seconds away from sending Tiny to a shelter and sealing their own fates. So here's my question for you. When was the last time you ignored your gut or someone else's warning because it seemed irrational? And what happened? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story reminded you to trust the signs you can't explain, hit that subscribe button. Because here at Mr. Bryan Tales, we don't just tell stories. We uncover the moments when the impossible saves lives, and the unbelievable turns out to be true. I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious, stay safe, and never underestimate the dog nobody wanted. Mr. Bryan Tales.